All right, we are back and we are here to talk hockey. And of course, we have the panel back. We have Ryan, Eric, and of course, from Montreal, Frank. Hope you guys are doing well. Frank, what's up in the Montreal area?
Nothing much. Mild winter. Most places for ice fishing are already closed in Quebec. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's completely crazy. It's not closed near my place, but around Quebec, we've had basically 3 days of cold weather. The lakes here are still, there's water, so it's crazy. So, and the Habs are winning, which is bad. Can't even count on the Oilers to beat us.
Yeah, and how about you, Eric? What have you been up to since our last broadcast? Anything new?
Oh, no, not really. Just kind of, watching. Certainly, I got to admit, my interest has really taken over with the Oilers as they truly can make a mark in their division. Certainly had a setback against Montreal, but whereas the Leafs, they look pretty stuck in a position, right? They've it's pretty clear they're not going to catch the Bruins, and it'll be between that second and third. So whether they have home ice or not, so it's hopefully they don't fall. I mean, they have in the past fallen in February and even missed the playoffs when they looked like they were solidly in, but the Oilers are catching my attention now as they certainly are a second half team. So excited to watch Oil games, and hopefully they can do what they're supposed to do. I hope so.
All right. And how about you, Ryan? What you been up to over the last couple months? I guess the last time we did a broadcast was in November. So what's been going on in your life?
I'm just enjoying hockey. Really, the Oilers are making things interesting as always. Before Christmas, are we even going to make the playoffs? After Christmas, where are we going to fit in the playoffs? All that fun stuff. A lot of talk about Carlson, maybe Chikrin. I don't want either of them, but we'll see where it goes. Makes for some interesting talk either way.
Yeah. And we have a bunch of shows planned over the next couple of months. We're going to do a redraft tonight from 2003. We're going to do a draft in about a week's time. We're going to redraft 2008. And we're also going to do a trade deadline episode towards the end of February. And of course, once the playoffs hit, we will put our reputations on the line once again. We'll take a look back at the beginning of the season, see how those predictions turned out. And then, of course, we'll make predictions for the upcoming playoff season. If you are
I got one already. I have one already. Round 1, Leafs lose to Tampa.
Oh, guys, save that for later. We'll have plenty of time for that. If you are a Jets fan, if you're a Flames fan, if you're a Senators fan, a Canucks fan, get a hold of me, leave a message, leave a comment. And if you want to come on the podcast and brag about your team or shed a few tears about your team, we can definitely include you in a future podcast. So please do that. We're looking for some more good old-fashioned hockey fans. As Stompin' Tom Connor says, it's a great day for hockey, and hopefully you can be involved in our podcast in the future. So today, guys, we have a cool kind of concept. We're going to look at the 2003 draft, and we're going to go through and we're going to look at the Canadian teams. We're going to evaluate them, and then we're going to redraft. We're going to pick the first 16 picks. We'll kind of rotate through the order and see if the draft changes too much from the real thing. So let's start with the Canadian teams. Of course, we have the 7 Canadian teams that some of them did not have first-round picks, Toronto, and others did have first-round picks, but maybe didn't make as best use of them as we would have liked. So let's start with who wants to go first? Frank, you want to go first and talk about the Montreal draft?
Yep. So in a normal year, it would have been a good draft because they got 4 solid NHLers from the draft. Katsitsin, Lapierre, Auburn, and Halak in round number 9. But 2003 was one of the best drafts in history. So it's basically a missed opportunity draft. So going right after Custison was Jeff Carter. Right there, you have a completely different ball game. You go from 398 games played to Jeff Carter, who's still playing today. Over 800 points, 400 goals, 400 assists. So it was just missed opportunities throughout, and that's going to be a recurring theme for some of the superstars that went out late in this draft. But the first round was stacked. There's 2 players under 100 games in the whole first round out of 30 players. So not a lot of misses that year because it was such a stacked draft. So overall, the weird thing is our best pick was our last pick in round 9, which is Halak, who also is still playing hockey to this day. But that's round 9. It just shows you that it was not a very good draft. So because, having 4 NHLers, usually you find that to be a successful draft. But because of the special situation, I give Montreal a grade of D.
A grade of Z? I've never seen that on a report card.
No, D. D
Oh,
as in David.
Oh, okay. It's just lost in translation. D as in David. All right. So the Montreal Canadian fan is a harsh critic and gives his 2003 draft a grade of D. I am going to give the Canadiens a little bit better than that. Kostichin played for, he played 398 games, first round pick, number 10 overall. Yes, there were better players. Halak, definitely, I agree, Frank, best player that they took in that draft. And after that, Maxime Lapierre, he played a fair bit in the NHL. I believe a lot of that time with Colorado. And then Ryan O'Byrne would be the fourth guy that played quite a few games, over 300. So I'm going to be a little easier on them. I'm going to give them a C+ for that draft. How about you, Eric, assessing the Montreal Canadiens?
Oh, well, I was focused on Toronto because, man, you could do a lot of research on just the choices they've made in this draft. So Montreal, I mean, you know what? It's like throwing stones. I can't throw any stones anywhere. I think I agree. I think it was, it's always easy to look back and you see all the picks that you chose and you see these guys that went on to great careers, and you're like, why did we choose that guy? So I probably would go with. I'd lean more towards Frank. I think it's disappointing, and I think you're going to hear that from me all the time because I look at all these misses that the Canadian teams had, and I think it's disappointing. So I would have to, looking back with 20 years later, I'd go with the D as well.
Yeah, you have to look at the impact.
And I mean, so I know that you said, and what.
We're getting just a little bit of lag with Eric, but
and the other thing, it sounds like you mentioned that there was, your letters, the letter Z came up, or Z. You wait, what's coming? I'll tell you when we talk about Toronto. So.
All right, so we have a D from Eric.
One thing to remember is you look at O'Byrne with his 300 whatever games, but you have to look at the impact. The guy had no impact. So you have to put that in the equation when giving grades. Custison has 200 points, almost. He's the one with the 7th least amount of games played in the whole first round, and he went 10th overall. So that's why it's like you look at, okay, they got NHLers, but nobody of impact.
Yeah, very good point. Ryan, how about you? Give a quick letter grade for the Montreal Canadiens.
I might have to go with a C minus. Sure, we could talk about the impact, but you have Halak played 571 games. He's still kicking around, isn't he? Maxime Lapierre, 600 games. Kostitsin, almost 400 games, first round pick. So, I mean, they did get some serviceable work out of some players. Of course, they never kept them all, but that's 1/3 of the draft of players that played for at least a couple seasons or a few seasons. So, I mean, can't really ask much more than that. So I'd say C minus.
All right. So I think we're in agreement that they did not have a very good draft. Ryan, since you're on, let's jump ahead to your Edmonton Oilers and their 2003 draft. So in 2003, what do you take out of their draft?
Well, we found a player late. Everything other than that is garbage. Stortini, I guess, played 250. Brodziak played 900. Those two players made up a very entertaining line in the early 2000s for the Oilers. So that was a lot of fun to watch. But after that, it's absolute garbage. I want to have to give him an F.
An F? Wow. Okay, I'm gonna jump right in there. I mean, Mark Pouliot, I believe, I think this is the draft, he was Crosby's teammate in the queue, and I think his stats in junior hockey were really obviously pumped up by having Crosby on his line, and we all know that line mates in junior do not translate the same in the NHL. So I think they jumped the gun on that one. So many better players were available. I'm gonna go D minus. I can't give the Oilers an F, but they're very close. Brodziak kind of saves it from the F because he was a very useful player in a third or fourth line role for many years. Eric, how about you with the Edmonton Oilers?
I would give probably I remember Stortini quite well because he was fun, right? He was a gutsy player. He was a tough player. And so, I remember he was a fan favorite as well. In a decade of darkness, right? That's the times that the Oilers were just so bad. So my own personal bias on that. I mean, I shake my head at because the Oilers actually did have some draft picks that they could have chosen so much better. And didn't. Ryan Kessler comes to mind, and I know Ryan Kessler wasn't much to begin with, but then became something. So I think I would probably go with a C. Well, yeah, C minus. I think just because of those two players that you mentioned, but Sortini to me, I liked. I think he was in a fight. He did okay in fights. And then eventually he really got smoked and he was out the door kind of thing. And I think his career was over. It was
now he's a panelist at Rogers.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, yeah, whatever. I liked him. I remember he was a pretty popular player here. So yeah, again, because of that, they get a C minus.
And Frank, from an Eastern perspective, Oil 2003.
I don't know, man. You gotta look at perspective, man. It's the 2003 draft. We're not talking about a usual draft. You got a guy who had 44 points, the most in his career. It's like, I don't know. To me, this is an F. I agree with Ryan. It's like Kessler went right after Pouliot. And it's like, you're probably going to have over 15 Hall of Famers from this draft. And you're patting yourselves on the back for a guy who played 917 games, then crossed 300 points, and Sortini played 257 games. And you look at everybody that played, just 600 games or more, and that's to have a full pension in the NHL. There's 39 players that played over 600 games. So I don't know. So to me, this is an F. There's no impact player at all in a draft full of impact players. So sorry, but I have to put an F.
No, that's completely fair. I would have to question if any of us gave the Oilers anything higher than a C. Definitely, it was D or lower for Edmonton. Let's skip ahead to Eric's Maple Leafs. Eric with the Maple Leaf, their 2003 draft, they did not have their first pick overall. So we're just assessing them on the picks after that. So what do you have to say about Toronto?
Why is there laughter? Like, seriously, there should not be laughter. Okay, people say Toronto and there's giggling, for God's sake. All right, so sweet. I forgot, Glennie. You've made it so that we can't say any swear words. So,
You are filtered.
So the Leafs at the time were very much into trading for old guys. They traded for old guys. So the reason why Nolan, and we remember him, so he came over from San Jose. So, San Jose ended up with a guy named Mark Stewart. Well, actually, they didn't because Boston did. So there was obviously a trade. And he played for a long time in the NHL. And he played for Boston. So, although it doesn't really impact a lot. Other Gilmore came back to Toronto. These were all draft picks that were not necessarily from this draft, though. So when I did my research, I was like, why did you do this? And that's why. So let's see who we got. Well, we got a nice Irish boy, for God's sake, by the name of John Doherty. He's a fine young man from America. Never had a cup of coffee in the NHL. That's the first one. And then we got a Martin Sagat. And Martin did nothing. And then, there is a Jeremy Williams somewhere down the line. And Jeremy actually did play for Toronto, but I don't remember him. So that tells me something too. So it was awful. And there's just no team. They weren't looking at draft picks. They were very much let's get old guys and let's get people in the building. And, along with Phil Housley came to Toronto as well. And so at that time in 2003, and again, it cost some draft picks. Lost the 9th rounder in 2003 for good old Phil Housley. And these were all guys at the end of their, they were names for sure, but they were at the end of their careers. Dougie Gilmore, I remember him coming back to Toronto, and thanks Montreal for that. And he came back, and I think he played one shift, or I don't know. He was in that game, that first game, did something to. I remember him crawling back onto the bench because something happened. And I don't think he played again. And that was near the end of his career. So that's the way they were at that time. That was the management at the time. And it was awful. And you cannot, I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. I think F is the lowest, usually in teaching. F minus, I guess we could go that far. That's got to be what it is. Like, seriously, this is awful. This is just gross. So there you go. There's my thoughts.
All right, let's move on to the next part of the program. And something I've been looking forward to, the panel's been looking forward to, the redraft. How would we choose today? This is the 20th year anniversary of the 2003 draft. And some of these players are still in the league. So a lot of longevity. So here is the original draft order. And we are only going to go through the first 16. And you see the original picks by each of the teams right next to them. So Fleury, Stahl, Horton, Zherdev, and Vanek were the first 5 taken overall. And we're going to start with Ryan. Ryan, you get pick number 1. You are on the clock. First player of one of the deepest drafts in NHL history, who do you select number 1 overall? Is it still Marc-Andre Fleury?
No. Looking at how the last 20 years have unfolded, I'd have to go with Patrice Bergeron.
Okay. And why?
Like probably one of the best two-way forwards to play in the league, at least in the last 20 years. I mean, you could probably make that safe bet. Won a couple cups with Boston. Still playing, solid player. First line player, was on the best line in hockey a couple years ago. I mean, just an all-around solid guy. I mean, he only went in the second round, so I mean, it's not like it was a 9th round golden find. So there was some people looking at him, but I got to go with that guy first overall.
That would have been my pick, and I think the panel, everyone on the panel, I think probably would have went with Patrice Bergeron. A great player, deserved to go in the first round. He slipped. Maybe I don't know, Frank. You might have a better idea because he's from that area. Do you know why he slipped so far?
I think back at the time, he didn't have the size that the league was looking for. Look at Nathan Horton. You know, he was a prototypical guy that people wanted to draft, and also his skating. So, but in hindsight, and that's the thing with Bergeron. He's over 1,000 points. One of the 3 players in this draft over 1,000 points, but he was as good in his own zone as he was in the offensive zone. And that's why, to me, it's a no-brainer, because this is a Selke winner with 1,000 points. It's like, what more do you want from a player?
Right. Yeah, great player. Number 2 overall, the Carolina Hurricanes. They chose Eric Staal. And Frank, you have the 2nd pick overall. Eric Staal went originally number 2. Who would you take 2nd overall?
Eric Staal. So he's one of the other 2 players with 1,000 points, so 450 goals, 600 assists, won a cup in 2006. You guys might sort of remember that cup, but he and Cam Ward basically willed the Hurricanes to that cup. He was dominant. He had the physical aspect also of his game. He was big, that exactly what the league was looking at that point. That's why Bergeron probably slid down. He was what 6'4" or something. So it's like that's what they were looking for, and he actually delivered. Still playing today, but not as impactful as Bergeron right now. So I don't know. We got 30 games left. There's 33-point difference between the 2. So Bergeron probably not going to catch him by year end, but it's going to be very close. Eric Staal is actually playing pretty good in Florida. So he's my pick, Stanley Cup winner. And like he willed that team to win with Cam Ward as a goalie.
Yeah, another very good pick. Completely makes sense. Definitely a top 2 pick. And number 3, the Florida Panthers, who actually traded down in this draft. They originally had the number 1 pick, and they made a deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins where the Penguins gave up, I believe it was a late 2nd rounder, plus the number 3 pick, plus a guy you may remember, Mikhail Samuelson, they gave up to swap positions. And they went with the big Nathan Horton. And again, great player at the time, size, did very well. I think he eventually made his way to Boston, and then injury really kind of took over. So Mr. Nathan Horton was number 3 overall. Eric, with the number 3 pick, now knowing what you do, who do you select?
Not Nathan Horton. So you know what? I if I'm building, I like defense. I tip of the hat to Montreal Canadiens fans, because I grew up in the 70s and I saw that defense core that they had. So I need a defenseman. I need a beauty, and I don't mean Ryan Suter, who went much higher. I'd go Shea Weber all the time. Like I like Shea Weber. I loved what he did in Montreal, and that was near the end of his career, really. Nashville, my heavens, did they ever have some defense? And but I liked Shea Weber a lot. He's a beauty. Take him 10 times. Yeah, number 3 right there. That's my guy.
And Shea Weber, I don't know if you guys remember offhand, where did he actually go in the draft?
49th. He was
49th?
So he went to Nashville. Yeah, I think it was the number 49 pick, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 49 overall.
And
Yeah.
Suter was his
Number
defense
7.
partner. So that
And
was
I
a
think he went
dynamic.
number 7. Didn't he? Then wasn't Suter 7 as well?
Yeah, Suter went in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went number 7. So you're right, Eric. Nashville had, man, did they have the cream of the crop in terms of young defensemen on the team, and that carried them into the playoffs for many seasons. So great pick.
That's 2 Hall of Famers right off the bat. Round 1, round 2, 2 Hall of Famer defensemen. Wow. We were talking earlier about the Canadian team's draft. Look at what Nashville did. It's like, wow. And one was the man tower, Weber, and then Suter. Like, he's still playing today. You can say nothing about Suter. He both of them were one of the greatest first pair, like, ever. You had like Bobby Orr, that was great and all that, but this first pair, they put him on the ice 30 minutes a game. Think about that. Half the game you have these two in your face, and they were good both sides. Like Weber hit. It's like, what the opposite team's like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna play against these guys 30 minutes out of the game. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And there is an A draft, even though they didn't really select anyone else that made an impact in the NHL. Just the fact that they got Suter and Weber, you have to give them an A report card for their draft.
Damn right.
All right. Yeah, let's move on to pick number 4. Originally, pick number 4 belonged to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Had pick number 4, and they selected Nikolai Zherdev. So again, a player that kind of reminded me of a Yakupov kind of player, like a lot of flash and dash, but really didn't have what it took to succeed in the NHL. So he went number 4 overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets. If I was picking number 4, I do not take Zherdev. I don't think he even, is going to be picked in the first couple rounds if it went again today. I'm going to have to go with the original number 1 pick, Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury still playing today. A beloved character in the dressing room, great in the community, always has a smile on his face. Yeah, injuries did kind of plague him off and on in his career, but what a great goalie. And to take a goalie that early in round 1, you've got to have a lot of guts to do that, because goalies are very tough to predict at that young of an age. So I take Marc-Andre Fleury number 4 overall. So he does slide down a little bit from the number 1 position. All right, let's go to pick number 5. Originally, that was to the Buffalo Sabres and Thomas Vanek. Ryan, you're up again. Who do you select number 5 overall?
I have to go with Brent Burns for number 5.
Okay.
Big, rangy, hard to play against, offensive, defensive, like plays both pretty well. Can quarterback a power play and shut you down defensively. Got to go with that guy. Wasn't he drafted as a forward, or didn't he play forward earlier in his career?
Minnesota, he was like big buff, a slash player.
Yeah.
But I think in the youth hockey, he was a forward, and then they switched him to. He started his career as a forward in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing anything, so they switched him to a defenseman.
No, I love his attitude. Like in the room, he's probably an absolute joy to play with. And he has your back on the ice, and gotta love those 2 missing teeth in his smile, and, and I don't know, just a great Great guy, great career. Doesn't have a cup yet, so hopefully he can get that before he retires. But still,
He's got a good chance this year.
yeah.
And
So
he just got
hopefully-
better with age. He just got better and better. And doesn't he have a large snake collection too? Wasn't that something?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. He loved
Yeah.
the reptiles. Yeah.
And FYI, he's mostly played defenseman. That's where his success came from. And he's 8th overall in this draft in terms of points.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he moves up to number 5 overall. Ryan's pick number 5. All right. Frank is back on the clock. In the original draft, the number 6 pick went to the San Jose Sharks, and they took Milan Mikhailiuk, a useful player. He had a good, solid career in the NHL. Again, injuries got him late in the career. I think it was an Edmonton Oilers playoff game. Ryan will know better which player. Was it Zach No, I don't think it was Sortini. Who was it that hit Mikhailiuk?
Was it
Remember who that
2017?
No, I think it was 2006 where
Oh, I can't
Mikhailiuk
remember
really
that.
got rocked. Yeah.
I can't remember that.
Ryan was
I-
alive at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Come on,
That was-
Ryan.
that was-
Don't you remember?
That was like my second year where I was really following hockey, so I don't like. I don't remember those key moments. No, I don't.
So, Frank, I don't think you're going to take Mikhailiuk, number 6 overall. Who do you got selection-wise this time?
Cup winner, future Hall of Famer, the third guy with 1,000 points in this draft in his career, Ryan Getzlaf is my 5th pick.
Right? And he originally went number 19 overall to Anaheim. And what makes him the number 6 overall pick?
Big guy, 1,000 points, like I said. He didn't score. He mostly had assists, but still, number 1C, hard to play against with it because of his size. He fought earlier in his career, so people remember the last few years, but he was dominant physically. He was Ryan Kessler that could score.
Yeah.
I remember some shifts, like both him and Perry would drop the gloves on the same shift and kick some butt, So, like, what else can you ask for? Everybody, this is when you're looking to draft a 1C, this is who you want. Dominant on the power play, so like that's a no-brainer. 1,000 points, one of the 3, so he can't slip much more past the 6th pick.
All right. Yeah. Great pick. Eric, moving to you. So we have the number 7th overall pick. Originally, Nashville would take Ryan Suter. You've already taken a big, powerful defenseman. Who are you taking number 7 overall?
He's going to take the same one, I'm telling you.
I'm not actually.
Oh.
But I like Ryan Suter, and Frank made a good point, right? You got those two nasty defensemen, and good on Nashville because they actually did do this, and what we're doing is just make believe. But you know what? I like those guys who play with an edge, and as was mentioned by Frank earlier, one guy's getting in a fight, and so is the other guy. Corey Perry would be my choice. He's nasty. He's still playing. My God, last year, just looking at his stats for Tampa, he just about was a 20-goal scorer. And, I mean, we know he has a limited role. And he got 19 goals last year. He's a beauty. He fights. He's had 50 goals in his career. One time 43. I'm looking at my stats. He's a beauty, and I've seen him, there's been ISO cameras on him, and he's a rat as well. And
He's the original Kachuk.
Yeah, those are the guys that you want on your team, but you hate playing against, and he's that guy. So, yep, I would take Corey Perry.
Yeah,
winner.
50 goals in 2010, 2011. So he did have 150-goal season. And like you said, he had close to 20 last year. So, yeah, great pick. Great guy. Guys you that you don't want to play against, but you want them on your team. Kind of one of those, almost like a Ryan Kessler type as well. Just a little better career. Any other thoughts about Corey Perry from the rest of you guys?
We're nitpicking right now between like, oh, you didn't pick Suter, but like I said, 16 players play 1,000 games, so it's hard to nitpick. That's a solid choice. He's going to be a Hall of Famer also. So
yeah. All right, and then we have the number 8th overall pick from the Atlanta Thrashers. They took Braden Colburn. Again, they kind of struck out with that one. I am going to go a little bit off the board. Suter's still there, but I'm going to take another guy that I think has had an excellent career, was passed over by many teams, and that is, if I can find him here, Joe Pavelski.
Go down to the 7th round. Seventh round.
205th pick.
Yeah.
Talk about hitting a home run in the 7th round. Joe Pavelski, again, I'm sure it was his size that cost him an earlier pick, but good on San Jose for picking him 205th overall. If I was drafting, definitely he would be in the top 10. Since I have the number 8 pick, going to go with him. Really hasn't been injured a lot in his career. He's missed a few games in the last few seasons, but he's that guy that played 82, 82, 82, 48, which was the 48 game season, 82, then captain. I don't think he's won a cup. No, he hasn't won a cup yet. Hopefully he'll get one soon. But number 8 overall to the Atlanta Thrashers.
By the way, I know you want to pat yourself on the back, but in hindsight, it's not off the chart pick.
Yeah,
would go top 10 in any redraft because I said earlier there's 3 players with 1,000 points. Well, he's going to be the 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, we head back to Ryan. Ryan with the number 9 pick overall, which originally was your Calgary Flames.
You guys throwing off my book here.
They took Dion Phaneuf. Who are you going with, number 9?
I see Ryan Sutter still on the board, and I had him a lot higher than what I want to pick at here. But I got to go with the guy who I thought was going to be sitting here. Hated playing against him, or small forwards hated playing against him. Career cut short by injuries or whatever the heck he's got going on there. But I have to go with Big Buff, Dustin Byfuglien.
Ooh, Byfuglien ahead of some of those other guys.
A heavy hitter, a guy who can shut you down, a guy who will just be a menace for any skilled forward in the offensive zone.
He wasn't injured, by the way. He was just bored. He went back to fishing.
Yeah, Minnesota. Good God.
Yeah. Where did he go originally? Do you remember, Ryan?
Big Buff.
Oh, it was a ways down.
Round 8, pick number
wow.
245.
Oh, round 8. All right, so you're going with Dustin Byfuglien, number 9 overall
Just say
to
Big
Calgary.
Buff. And look, this guy was unmanageable in his peak season.
Mm-hmm.
He was 265 pounds, and he could skate like the wind, It's like he wasn't like Connor Bedard fast or Connor McDavid, but for a 265-pounder, he was fast.
He could get on you quick, and he would make you hurt.
Yes, and on the power play, his shot was amazing. He was a unicorn.
Yeah.
We've never seen
I figured for sure Sutter would be gone by now to make this decision easier, but I still have to go with him.
Yeah, and it's like this guy's a unicorn. We've never seen a player like him, and we're probably never going to see a player like him. Like who's 265 pounds that can skate like him? It doesn't happen.
Well, he's another guy that started as a forward too.
Yep.
Yeah, he did.
Some of the best highlights.
He had the dual eligibility at one point, forward and D in fantasy hockey because he played both.
Mm. Yeah.
Because at one point he wasn't the power play quarterback; he was in front of the net, and doing his Tim Kerr imitation. Like Tim Kerr was masterful as touching pucks in front of the net. Well, that's what he was doing for a while. So yeah, can't go wrong with big buff 8th rounder.
Wow. Some of the best highlights were the guys bouncing off of him trying to body check him.
Oh,
like
you couldn't do anything.
Manhandled him.
No, exactly. It's like Bo Jackson playing football.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we go down to Montreal's pick, and that takes us back to Frank. Originally, the Canadiens again took Stichin, number 10 overall. A lot of great players on the board, Frank. Who are you going to take?
Oh, Ryan's not falling any further. Future Hall of Famer, 1,300 games played. He's number 2 on the list, behind Eric Stahl, 650 points. So, look, future Hall of Famer, nothing left to say. Like,
Ryan Suter.
He should not have dropped this far, but like I said, we're nitpicking right now because it's like, ooh, do I want this Hall of Famer or that Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Our next show will not be this picking between Hall of Famers at pick number 9.
Yeah, this is the Christmas episode. The next episode is the New Year's hangover, I think, because it's going to be a lot tougher in the next episode. All right, next we have Eric up, and Eric, your Philadelphia, not your Philadelphia, but you are picking where Philadelphia did pick. They picked Jeff Carter, and just curious, are you going to repick him for the Flyers?
I would not. I think I can get better. And so getting better is Ryan Kessler. I like Kessler. I like the edge of Kessler. He played over 1,000 games. Plus, you know what? The whole Jeff Carter thing, I've heard things about. So, and it's all rumors. And I mean, we know Kessler's probably not a choir boy as well. But Carter, it was pretty unceremonious the way he was out of Philadelphia. And so there's some kind of something there as well. He's a bit of an arrogant guy. His career, he's still around, of course, still doing his thing, but Kessler got injured. I like Kessler. If I could redraft, I would, and Hall of Famer, he's coming. So, yeah, Ryan Kessler for sure. Boom.
And yeah, a lot of bruisers in this draft, like a lot of big guys with a lot of grit, captain material. As Frank mentioned earlier, it truly was an exceptional draft class in 2003. All right, my turn now. And the number 12 pick, originally going to the New York Rangers, might have been the biggest flop of the draft. And it's a guy that, was highly ranked, was touted as the next best thing, and an American player, Hugh Jessamine, that I don't even know if he played a game. 2 games he played in the NHL, whereas everyone else in the first round, with the exception of the last pick, played, over 100 games. So they really struck out with Hugh Jessamine. So it doesn't matter who I pick. It's going to be an upgrade over Hugh Jessamine. But I'm going to go with a guy that has tailed off in his career, but still is a useful player for the New York Islanders, and that's Zach Parise. Edmonton Oilers originally had this pick in this position, and then they traded down because they wanted Mark Pouliot. And what could have been in 2006 if they would have went with Zach Parise? So again, useful winger, had a successful career in New Jersey, in Minnesota, now with the Islanders, has 14 goals already this season in 56 games. And again, he signed that long contract in Minnesota, got traded to the Islanders. Hopefully he can maybe be a playoff possible cup winner. We'll see. But Zach Parise is going number 12. So that brings us to our last pick each. And Los Angeles, Dustin Brown recently got recognized in LA for his contributions there. Ryan, you are back up with the number 13th pick. Is it going to be Dustin Brown?
Well, if I'm building a team and I'm building a team off these 4 players, I have my center, I have my 2 big defensemen, and I need a goalie. And I have to go with Halak. Drafted 9 or around 9, has found a way to just keep in the NHL for this long. He was a solid goalie. Backup when he needed to be a backup, starter when he needed to be a starter. Reliable for the most part. Just a good, solid, long-term goalie. So I got to go with Halak for 13th overall.
And Frank, you have a lot of experience with, Halak in Montreal, of course, his miracle against the, Washington Capitals, I guess it was, when Jose Theodore was.
And the Penguins.
And the Penguins.
And it wasn't Jose Theodore. It was the Price years.
Oh, was it the Price year where he stepped in the playoffs?
Well, he didn't step in. He was the actual starter. Price was trying to establish himself in the league at that point. And after that, when he single-handedly beat Pittsburgh and Washington, people wanted us to trade Price and keep Halak.
Yeah, right. I remember that, yeah. So, yeah, a good pick. I think I would have went with a different goalie, but Halak is definitely, like you said, still playing and had many great years in Montreal and went on to Washington. He's played for a lot of teams: St. Louis, Montreal, Islanders.
Boston's the one that comes to mind the most.
Yeah, great backup in Boston, but he did play 40 games in Boston one season, so they split the duties there. All right, good pick. Next, back to Frank with the number 14th pick, Chicago's pick. They took Brent Seabrook, and who you taking with pick number 14?
I was so scared when he said goalie. Oh no, he's going to steal my goalie. But then I did the little dance because he took a wrong goalie. So the right goalie.
Which one's still playing?
It doesn't matter. You have to look at, like I said earlier, impact. Corey Crawford is my pick. His career was cut short because of his injury. And if you look at his career, 2 years he had goal saves above average. That was negative. He's got a 918 save percentage for his career. Goals against average of 245. Very underrated goalie on the Chicago Cup team. The second one, not the first one. So to me, that's a no-brainer. He's got 2 years of goal saves above average of 15. That's insane as a number. Then he's got another one that's 14. So yeah, Corey Crawford, underrated because Taves and Kane and all those guys, Seabrooks and Duncan Keith got all the glory, but without him, there's no cup with Chicago. So that's my
I didn't realize he had such a great save percentage, goals against average. I always saw him as not a bad goalie, but a goalie on a great team like Grant Fuhr was with Edmonton. But he really did have a solid career in Chicago, and that was the other goalie that I would have taken ahead of Halak. So Ryan, good pick. Good pick. Great. He's a great player, but Eric, you are on the clock.
The last note is you always take the starter. Crawford was a starter for most of his career versus the backup. So that's why he's good. Even Jimmy Howard was a starter for longer. So I don't Halak, longevity, yes, but too high in my mind. So.
And definitely Halak with the memories that, again, those playoff series early on in his career, he established himself in the NHL. Eric, the New York Islanders chose Robert Nielsen, a player that Edmonton had coveted and wanted to take in this draft, and they weren't able to. Didn't fall to him, so that's probably why they traded their pick and didn't take Parise. They eventually would get Robert Nielsen. Didn't really help them. Who are you going to take number 15 overall?
I guess kind of my theme is the horses. I like the defenseman, and I'm going to go with Duncan Keith's partner forever and ever. Amen. It seems, because when I think of Duncan Keith, I think of this guy, and that's Brent Seabrook. Time on the ice. When I look at his ice time, he usually was around 23, 20 minutes, 21, 22. He's not the goal scorer. His stats aren't sexy like that, but he was a very solid, strong defenseman, and I like him. I liked him as a player. Second fiddle to Duncan Keith, but still a really important part of that those championship teams.
Yeah, and I remember early in their career, both Keith and Seabrook, weren't really reaching what everyone thought was their potential. And there was talk of trading both of them earlier on in their career, and Chicago didn't do it. So good on them. So yeah, good pick. And with the last pick of this redraft, San Jose eventually took a guy named Steve Bernier. Remember him? Because I don't really remember Steve Bernier.
No, I do. He went to New Jersey at one point, was a good fourth liner for them. So he was a role player. A big guy again. That's the theme of the draft. Big dude. But like he played sporadically. When he did, it was fourth line. So
hey, well, I'm not going to take Steve Bernier. I'm going to take a little bit of flash and dash, and a guy I admired, watching him play in Buffalo, and that was Thomas Vanek. So Thomas Vanek, I think, is appropriately, around this time of the draft. There's still Jeff Carter. There's still, Mike Richards. But again, there's, some uncertainty about their character off the ice. But Thomas Vanek, I think, was a great player. I believe he played over 1,000 games, if I'm right here. Where's his stat line?
1,029. He's one of the 16. Yeah.
And a player I always wanted to see. He was basically a much better Ales Hemsky in terms of my opinion from that kind of same time period. And a player I was hoping Edmonton would eventually get at some point. But yeah, his career was kind of cut short too. I don't know if it was injuries. He played 20 games in 2016 with Florida.
It was an injury.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
He still played till he was 35. Yeah.
Yeah, 13 years, right?
Yeah.
But he could have played more. I think it was a ankle or tendon or something like that in his foot. I'm guessing. But
Montreal even played in Montreal.
Yeah, that was our Steven Kohlberg trade. Kohlberg and a second rounder for Vanek. And we did well in this. He did well in the playoffs for us that year. So
yeah. I like this site. It shows all the teams and how many years they played. He played for 8 different teams in his career. Wow. A lot of them were one and done, but yeah.
I remember the rumors about him playing for the Oilers. There was a lot of hot talk about Vanek coming to the Oilers, right? And they wanted him pretty badly, but never got him, of course. So.
Well, I think that was during the offer sheet days, right, Eric? Where
we offered an offer sheet, but I don't think it matched.
Yeah, there we go. I knew he had an Oiler connection. Yeah.
So we, got the Dustin Penners later, and Kevin Lowe wasn't afraid to throw out that offer sheet. And Vanek, I'm pretty sure Vanek was one of those offer sheet guys. Yeah. All right. Well, that was extremely fun.
Can we do a quick honorable mention? Because I think people have to realize what we left on the board. Okay,
yeah. We'll go around the table once and a player that maybe we passed up on that deserves to be top 16. So we'll start with you, Frank. What do you have to say?
Well, obviously, Carter, there's multiple choices still. On the goalie front, like I said earlier, Jimmy Howard and Elliott. Both had long careers, so there's like so many. I'll leave some for you guys, but I'll fill in the blanks if there's others that weren't mentioned. But to me, Jeff Carter, 400 goals, 400 assists, 1,200 games. So got to pick him, character issues aside.
Yeah, it was between him and Vanek for me for that last pick, but Vanek, I think in his career, more of an impact player, whereas Carter was kind of more of a, behind the bigger guys, but definitely should be top 16. Eric, any last kind of players you want to highlight?
Yeah, I'd give an honorable mention to Dustin Brown. I thought he was a leader on those Los Angeles teams. He was a tough American kid, and was a big kid, 6', 210. So he was a decent hockey player. He was a good second. I wouldn't consider him a first liner, but a good second liner, tough, and played 1,200 games, so just about 1,300 games. So
fourth on the list.
Fourth on the list. So there you go. So Dustin Brown, definitely gets a mention for sure.
Okay. And Ryan, how about you? Any other player that deserves an honorable mention?
Yeah, we've talked about him already, but Dion Phaneuf, hard-nosed guy, 1,000 games in the NHL. Yeah. Never won a cup, no, but still somebody you'd want on your team, at least for the first half of his career.
Okay. And just ranking by, games played, we've kind of covered all of them. Louis Eriksson, he played over 1,000 games in the NHL. Again, very solid career early on. And then that big contract was kind of like an albatross that hung over his head for the last few years, but very solid player. David Backes, who you guys mentioned earlier on. Even Brian Boyle. Like, you have to admire the career Brian Boyle had. Became a role player, fourth line guy, but a guy that I think was extremely respected by his teammates. Other than that, Matt Molson was a 9th round pick, I believe, by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he had, a really good few years in the NHL.
Yeah, you're missing a big one. You're missing a big one who went the top 5. It's Nathan Horton. Without his back injury, he would have finished way higher on our list. 626 games played, 421 points. That's a 60-ish points per year. And he was a power forward, big dude. That's probably what cost him his back. So he needs an honorable mention, because his career was cut short, way short, unfortunately.
And goaltending wise, there's not much else after the big 5 that we talked about. Fleury, Halak, Howard, Crawford, and Elliott. After that, there wasn't a goalie that played more than 10 games in the NHL. So very strong in terms of players. Goaltender wise, it was couple really good ones, but not much after that.
But that's most years, because you only have 30 goalies. You have 180 defensemen, and you have, can't do the math, amount of forwards, which is even, it's like, so goalies, it's normal that you have great goalies that never make it because they were behind, like New Jersey drafting a goalie in the Brodeur years. Well, good luck with your career, buddy. Corey Schneider became a starter at 28? He had 3-4 years as a starter because he was stuck behind Luongo. So goalies, it's normal. 5 goalies that played as long as they did is a pretty good draft for goalies. We'll see in 2008 how many there were. I haven't looked at it yet, but it's going to be good to compare the different eras.
Yeah. And penalty minute wise, of all the players from the 2003 draft, Dion Phaneuf, Corey Perry, and Daniel Carcillo were the top 3 penalty minute leaders. So
and Backus and Big Buff, the 2 others over 1,000 minutes. There was 5 total over 1,000 minutes.
Yeah. So those drafted players in 2003, they like to pile up the minutes. All right. Well, that was fun, guys. Enjoyed going through the 2003 draft. Our next episode, we're gonna be a little bit tougher. We're gonna go through the 2008 draft. It's been 15 years now, and we're gonna go through and highlight some of the hits and misses, the booms and busts of 2008. Any last comments here? We'll start with you, Ryan, about the 2003 draft?
Just a lot of big boys. That's what I kind of learned here. A lot of big boys sprinkled with some small guys. Maybe an insurgence of small people starting to be picked in the NHL. But no, still at that time, the big boys dominated.
Okay. How about you, Eric? Any last closing comments here about 2003?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting just the eras, right? And both Ryan and Frank mentioned it. The big boys, that's kind of where the focus was, and we know how many piddled out. So just because you had that size of 230 pounds, 220, it didn't matter when you look at a Joel Pavelski or who ended up doing, and talk about an Oiler killer, right? And Ryan can appreciate this. He absolutely was, always. And so, so what an interesting time. And you forget, right, the eras that go, like you look at some of the little guys now, they wouldn't even made it. In 2003, they wouldn't even got drafted. So
would a Johnny Gaudreau have even been drafted? Yeah.
Well, and I'm thinking of Kyler Yamamoto, right? Like, how tiny he is, and no way. Like, so it's interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And Frank, any closing comments?
What a draft year. Like I said, so many Hall of Famers in this draft. For NHL teams, we like to joke, but this changed their franchises because Anaheim won cups because of this draft. Philadelphia trading Richards and Carter to LA brought them their cups. We can talk about character issues, but they still brought cups to LA.
Yeah, they did.
They did. They were the missing ingredients. And Dustin Brown that we talked about, he probably kept them in check. Well, one of them in check because Mike Richards ended badly for him. But it's like the wealth of talent. People might say, oh, they kept talking about it, but we'll see in other drafts. 2008, I checked real quick. There were pretty good players, and a lot of them are still playing. But some years it was bare, man. It's like the Yakupov draft, the top five.
Yeah.
There's no impact player in the Galchenyuk, Yakupov, and the defenseman that's on the Oilers now.
Ryan Murray?
Yeah, Ryan Murray. Those three hadn't had no impact on the NHL in their careers. So you have years like this, and when you have 2003, where you're taking Hall of Famers at 15 and 16, is mind-blowing. And people have to realize that that's the type of year 2003 was.
Yeah, it was a magical year for the NHL entry draft. That is for sure. Well, I want to thank you guys again. Thank the panel for being here. And it's been a while since we last met, but we will be back soon. We will be back within a week to redraft 2008. And for you Edmonton Oilers fans, you might remember that year. That was the year that the Edmonton Oilers picked Jordan Eberle. We'll see where he goes in the 2008 redraft next week. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Eric, for joining the broadcast today. Again, many more episodes to come. Thank you for watching the Average Albertan Podcast. We'll see you next episode. Enjoy the hockey. A lot of good hockey left to come in the next few months. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Cut. Okay.
Hey, I want the first pick in 2008 because I want you three fools to fucking fight over Eberle. There's no way he should go number one. You fools are gonna go. I'll take the guy who has already in 5 less years 1,000 points that the 2003 guys were trying to reach. It's like what the hell? That's like you're getting kicked off the podcast if you don't take Stammer.
Oh, it was the Stamkos here. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Stamkos and then all the
Yeah, he's okay.
When I say the number one cannot change, 500 goals, 500 assists, 1,000 points. Like, and he's still dominant. It's like, no, it's like that's a you can prepare your PowerPoints right now, Glenn. The second guy that has 1,000 games played, if he tempts you, Eric, is Joshua Bailey. Woo!
He's got Bailey saved for a second pick. Come on, don't spoil it.
You were all excited about the Oilers taking Brodziak, but this guy has 1,045 games, man. Ooh, wow, I love it. Drunken idiot. So 0 games played. Look, GP. Oh, blank, blanky. That's the bit. And Louis LeBlanc. You know who we could have picked instead of Louis LeBlanc? I think that's the John Carlson, or no, Chris Kreider. Oh, Chris Kreider? Louis LeBlanc, local guy. Yeah, great choice, guys. Woohoo!